Hello everyone and welcome back. Now that we have defined the actions that we need for our new NGRX application feature, let's go ahead and start modifying here the home component. So before, the home component was responsible for fetching the data that it needs from the backend, and it was also responsible for storing the data locally in these observables that we are defining here as member variables. Now, with the new store architecture that we are adopting for our application, this will no longer be the case in general. So the components will no longer be responsible for fetching the data themselves and storing the data themselves. The data will be instead stored in the store. If a component needs some data from the store, like it's the case here, we need to return from the store the list of courses that we want to display on the screen, then in that case the component is going to query the store using a selector. Let's then use a new selector to fetch the list of courses from the store. First, we are going to apply here the pipe operator, and then we are going to use the NGRX select operator to apply a selector to the complete data of the store. So we only need here a small slice of data, and we are going to slice the data using a new selector that we are about to write. It's going to be called select all courses. Let's then implement our new selector. We are going to switch here to the course selectors file, and let's go ahead and define select all courses. So as usual, we are going to be using create selector to define select all courses, and we're going to start by applying here this feature selector. This is going to select the complete courses state. Let's now generate the output of the selector by writing the projector function. So this is going to be a function with multiple arguments that correspond each to the output of the previous selectors that we defined here. In this case, we are going to have only one argument, which is going to give us the courses state. So this is the output of this selector here. This courses state that we have here is, switching here to a larger window, in the NGRX entity state format. So we have here an entities object containing the courses stored by ID, and we have here an array that preserves the courses order. Now we could access directly this format. Let's try it. We could, for example, write here some logic that gets the IDs, then applying object.values to this entities map, we would get a complete list of courses. Then we would have to sort those courses according to the IDs that are defined here in the IDs array. So we could write all this logic manually. But instead of doing that, it's much easier to use here our adapter that we have created here to quickly generate these very commonly used selectors for us. So let's go ahead and do that. Following common NGRX conventions, we are going to create our entity selectors here at the bottom of our reducer file. Let's check the methods available in our adapter. And if we choose here this function get selectors, we are going to get here a list of very commonly used selectors that we can easily export to the rest of the application. Let's export this under the form of an object, which will contain here, for example, the select all selector. If we check here the signature, this is taking a state of type entity state course, and it's returning us an array. So this array is going to be sorted according to the IDs array that we are storing also in memory in the store. Let's then export this selector so that we can use select all here in the definition of select all courses. Let's import the selector in the course selectors file using the following syntax. Import star as from course reducers. So with this, we will be able to use here the select all selector that we have defined over there. Let's then import it using from course.selectAll. And with this, we have finished the implementation of select all courses. So now this component is no longer fetching the data directly, it's instead fetching it from the store. But the problem is, the first time that this component gets loaded, nothing is present on the store, so we will have here an empty list. In order to signal to the store that the course's data is needed, we need to dispatch an action. Let's then call store.dispatch, and we are going to be dispatching this action that we have defined here, all courses requested. That takes no payload. So with this, the store will know that the courses are needed and it will know how to fetch them from the backend and populate them in memory. As we can see, this component will no longer need the courses service. It only needs the store in order to fetch its data. So with this, we have finished the refactoring here of our home component, and this is a good example of what is known as a container component using the NGRX terminology. It's a component that gets the store injected on its constructor and that queries the data that it needs using a selector. Now we have defined our first NGRX entity selector. Let's have a look at what other selectors the adapter.getSelectors call gives us. So using here autocomplete, we can see that we have select IDs, which gives us back the array containing the list of IDs. And the ID can either be a number or a string. We also have here select total that gives us the total number of entities that we have in memory. And we also have select entities, which gives us direct access to the entity map. We can go ahead and export these multiple selectors as we are likely to need them to build our application. Let's now continue the implementation of our new feature. We have already queried the store for the data that we have needed. We have requested the data from the store. Let's now implement the side effect that is going to load the data and save it in the store.